Okay, y'all hear me well?
Yes!
Good. So nice to see your smiling faces. So wonderful. You can hear me fine, right?
Yes!
Okay, so I'm just getting back from an island called Palmyra Atoll. You guys know where Hawaii is on a map? Yes, of course you do. So if you go from Hawaii and you go straight down to the equator, about 5 degrees above the equator, it's a small island called Palmyra Atoll. And I was just there like yesterday. And it's just the most amazing, tiny, tiny island, middle of the ocean. There were coconut crabs as big as my head. There were seabirds everywhere. We were swimming with manta rays and black-tipped reef sharks everywhere. Most amazing reef. But there was plastic trash on the beaches. So it was an amazing experience for me. But what I learned was that, anywhere you go in the world, you're going to find, plastic trash on beaches, in empty lots, on the side of the street. So it really is a global problem. But everywhere I also travel, I see so many solutions. So this island, Palmyra Atoll, it's owned by the Nature Conservancy. Can you hear the background noise?
Yes!
I'm sorry, I'm at the airport. So this island, the conservation work being done, the cleanups that are being done. I met scientists who are tagging sharks. I met scientists who are drilling holes in coral to study the kinds of bacteria that cause coral bleaching. I met one scientist, his entire job was to get rid of all the rats on the island. It's amazing work. So the point is that, this effort to stop plastic pollution, it's a global effort on many fronts. It's conservation work, it's cleanups, it's making smarter kinds of plastics, it's getting rid of microbeads in our facial scrubs, it's getting rid of straws or any kind of plastics used in your cafeteria at AES. So what I see in the world is lots of pollution, but also a lot of solutions. So I think I'd love to hear what you thought of the video. Did you watch Trash Manufactured?
Yes!
Did you see Sylvia Earle, the woman that I cast her face?
Yes!
She is the most amazing human being. She was the first person to put on one of those big giant underwater suits and go down to almost 2,000 feet by herself. Amazing human being, the first person to do it. And now I've met her a few times. She travels around the world talking about ocean conservation. She's one of my heroes. She's a cool person. You guys have any questions about the movie? Love to hear what you thought.
So Marcus, we've got some kids who will come and ask questions on behalf of
Okay,
all
I
of
can't hear you
us.
right now. Sorry.
We've got kids who will come and ask questions on behalf of all of us, if that's okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
That'd be
cool.
great.
All right.
The first question that we have is, did the companies that promised to stop using microbeads actually stop? And what companies are still using them?
That's a very good question. So there are a lot of companies still using them. Companies that are owned by Unilever and Procter & Gamble and Johnson & Johnson. Those are big parent companies that have like hundreds of kinds of products. Like maybe you've seen the product called Clean and Clear. It's a face wash. That's owned by Johnson & Johnson. They have hundreds of products. They're still using microbeads. But in the United States, we passed a federal ban. President Obama signed the federal ban. It's the Microbead Free Waters Act of 2015. So by 2018, about 2 years from now, there'll be no microbeads in any consumer products in the United States. And it's not just facial scrubs, it's also toothpaste. We get found microbeads in toothpaste. So yeah, Obama did an amazing thing, science solutions. In 2018, it's over in the US. Maybe India's next.
What is the most dangerous kind of plastic for ocean animals?
The most dangerous kind of plastic, it's That's a very interesting question because plastic can harm other life in different ways. You know, like a fishing net or some fishing line, it can strangle an animal. And we sometimes see, you know, turtles and marine mammals, whales, even some seabirds, and sea lions. They get stuck in old fishing nets. They get wrapped around the fishing line. They get their necks inside fishing nets and they get stuck. That's called entanglement. The other is called sorry. The other is called ingestion. Now, ingestion is, of course, when you ingest, you take in plastic particles. So it's sometimes the shape of plastic. If it's a big fishing net, it entangles. If it's small particles, you ingest it. And when you ingest it, there's also some chemicals that stick to plastics, like pesticides, industrial chemicals, other kinds of household chemicals. Even oil drops from cars will stick to plastics, and it makes a small plastic particle really toxic. And so the ones that get ingested are typically the ones that float, and those are polyethylene and polypropylene. So here's why plastic is harmful. Either it's going to entangle or be ingested. It's going to carry pollutants that get absorbed by the animals that eat it, and only a few kinds of plastics float. The ones that sink get stuck in mud. They're eaten by worms, actually. Ones that float, though, eaten by a lot of organisms. So once again, it's either entangled or ingested. There's chemicals that come off plastics, and the ones that float are the most harmful.
Where is the worst plastic pollution?
Where's the most plastic pollution? Was that your question?
Where is the worst plastic pollution?
Where
is the worst?
The worst?
Yes.
Like, where is the worst plastic pollution?
Yes.
It's so noisy here, I'm sorry. I said, where's the worst? You know, I have had a chance with a lot of good people to organize some expeditions and sail around the world. And we cross the North Pacific, South Pacific, the South Atlantic, the North Atlantic, Indian Ocean, the Bay of Bengal, and the Great Lakes. And actually, it was pretty bad when we sailed from Sri Lanka to Thailand, right through the Bay of Bengal. We got to the eastern side by the Andaman Islands. So look at your map, check out the Andaman Islands. When we got close, there was so much trash coming down. The currents are going sort of clockwise in the Bay of Bengal. So all that debris was coming along the eastern edge. Now, we've also found it, you know, all 5 subtropical gyres, like I said, North Pacific gyre, the South Pacific gyre, North Atlantic, Indian Ocean, South Atlantic. The worst one there is the North Pacific. But North Pacific gyre, between Hawaii and California, and I just flew over it just now, just got home. That area is a little gyre that rotates clockwise. The North Pacific gyre is full of fishing gear, fishing nets coming from Southeast Asia, but also Mexico, United States, are all contributing trash in the North Pacific gyre. On some beaches in Hawaii, you can pick up, you could fill a truck full of plastic trash in 1 hour. There's so much on some beaches. So to answer your question, it is the North Pacific gyre is the worst gyre, but the Bay of Bengal had a lot of trash. So some coastal areas have lots of trash.
What are some solutions to the problem of the plastic pollution?
Hang on 1 second. Okay, go ahead, real loud.
What are some solutions to the problem of plastic pollution that you think might work well?
That is probably the most important question. You know, what do we do about it? You know, I'm so glad that you watched the video because you learned what the problem is. Let's talk about how we solve the problem. That's what's most important. You know, it can really happen in your school. What you can do in your school is what anyone can do anywhere, and it is reducing your plastic footprint. I mean, how many of you have a reusable bottle that you bring to school? Awesome. And how many of you use a reusable bag when you go to get your groceries? Very good. How many of you, when you sit down at a table and they give you a drink, do you say, "No straw, please"? You can do that. That's one. So I think refusing the single-use throwaway plastics is one great start, source production. And then also, so that's working in your home, in your personal life. In your home, reduce plastic packaging. How often can you buy things in bulk? Like I've seen, like this airplane just now I was on, they had water bottles this small. And how dumb is that? When you buy in bulk, you buy a lot of stuff. Buy your biggest jar of peanut butter. Buy your biggest bottle of shampoo. Even make your own if you can. So I find there's a bigger culture growing of people who make their own things, buy in bulk. They use paper, metal, and glass. They avoid the plastics. So I think that's a way to change in your home. You can change your own habits. You can change your home. Then you change your community. So we're seeing whole communities, whole cities that are banning single-use plastics in favor of smarter alternatives, like getting rid of plastic bags. I know in Delhi, when I was there 2 years ago, there was an effort to get rid of plastic, very thin plastic bags in Delhi. I think next might be the little purple chai cups. Is there a paper alternative to purple chai cups that you can use instead in Delhi? How about the straws? Getting rid of straws. Going to paper. And if we buy enough of them, they become as cheap as the current plastic ones. So I think you can work in your personal life, you can work in your home to be zero waste, or work in your community to reduce plastics. And all these things together are called zero waste strategies. How do we zero waste our lives? And I'll tell you one last thing. One organization I'd love for you guys to research there in Delhi. It's called Chintan is one, and the other is Sweatshop for Change. Those two organizations are really working on zero waste solutions to plastic pollution right there in your city.
What are the consequences if we keep trashing the oceans?
Now that's a very good question, because we need to know, is it really a bad thing having plastic trash in the oceans? And we all know yes. If we keep adding more, if we don't stop our consumption, we are going to see more and more plastics on the ocean surface. Right now, we see a trend of increase of plastics at sea. We're going to see more plastic on the sea floor. You're going to see more plastic inside the bellies of marine life, inside the stomachs of whales and seabirds and sea turtles, and in fish. You're going to find more plastic in the fish that you eat. You're going to find less fish to eat. So I think you and I, together, we need to end this culture of mass consumption of plastics, of taking more from the ocean than we give. What I just discovered, going to Palmyra Atoll, that island I told you about, I discovered if you leave a place alone, if you manage a property, if you manage an island, manage a city, that animals come back, the plants come back, that life can come back to places if we take care of them. And that's what I see happening right now around the world, that your generation and my generation, that we're going to fix. It's an age of restoration that is happening. And it's learning how to live smart in our cities, zero waste communities, and preserve space for other life. That's what I think.
Why do you make the face sculptures, and do these symbolize anything?
I make the face sculptures because I believe art and science are very close together. To be a scientist, you often have to think like an artist, and to be an artist, you have to know the science of your materials, of your medium. So there's a lot of overlap in your skills and in how you think. So for me, making the masks, one is because I enjoy doing art. Another is the people that I'm making the face casts of, they're all important people. So Sylvia Earle, an amazing human being, I want to share her story about plastics. I also cast, you guys know who Jack Johnson is, the singer-songwriter? You might know him. Okay, so I just saw him in Hawaii yesterday. I cast his face. He's a famous singer in the United States, and I cast his face. I also cast Captain Charles Moore, as you saw in the video. I cast my wife when she was 5 months pregnant to talk about how plastic chemicals can get in your body, and when women are having babies, those chemicals can go inside the children as well. So every person I cast tells a story. So it's about me personally making art, but also telling stories about people that have very important stories to tell.
When did you start researching plastic in the ocean? What got you interested?
That's a very good question. So how I got started? Let's see. About 17 years ago, I was a high school teacher, and I was invited to go to some islands in the mid-Pacific. You know where Hawaii is? So one of the last islands in the Hawaiian chain is called Midway. And Midway is a tiny, tiny island halfway between Japan and the United States. And I went there with the students, and we went there to study birds, to study these beautiful seabirds called Laysan albatross. And we're studying American history. There's a bunch of war artifacts from World War II. But these birds, they're so beautiful, these birds, the Laysan albatross. I watch them in their mating rituals when they have their beaks come together, and they'll clack their beaks like they're kissing, and they'll tuck their beaks under their wings. It's a little courtship ritual, and I watch them doing this, and I thought, these animals on this island are amazing. But then, as we walked around the island, we found hundreds of carcasses of albatross that didn't survive. And every single one I saw had a big pile of plastic in its stomach. And it made me feel, it's like the emotion came before the scientific ideas, the scientific thoughts, be a scientist. And the emotion was, I saw a problem in the world. And I thought, I have two choices. I can do something about it because I felt so bad about the birds, or I can walk away and just say, it's somebody else's problem. Somebody else will deal with it. And I made that choice that I'm going to do something about this. Because every bird I saw, hundreds of birds were eating my trash. And it wasn't okay with me. So that 17 years ago began my interest. And then in 2004, I began sailing. In 2009, my wife and I began the Five Gyres Institute. And then we've been sailing around the world, ever since, publishing papers, doing research, and I feel very privileged that I was able to contribute some information that has been useful to change this problem. So it's been good for me. It's made me feel good about myself. So I would ask you, if you see a problem in the world, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, I'm going to be the change that I want to see in the world, like Gandhi said? Or are you going to say, that's someone else's problem? And that's a personal choice that each of you have to make, and every time you're confronted with something you see. Okay, who's next? These are wonderful questions, thank you.
Why do fish think food is plastic, and what do you think about solutions like edible six-pack holders or edible spoons?
So what was the first part of your question about fish?
Why do fish think food is plastic?
Think plastic is food?
Yeah.
Okay, well, one reason is plastic is a food. It can be a food mimic. It can look like food when it's not. Like albatross eat a lot of red bottle caps. They like the color red. They think the red is food. So fish might eat it because they actively select it because of its color and shape. Like sometimes reds and oranges and yellows, we don't find many particles of those colors. They get selected because of their color and their small shape. And lots of animals are filter feeders, which means they open their mouth, they suck in water, they don't care what's in the water. They're eating zooplankton. And what's new in the world is all this plastic. So as they just drink water, they get lots of plastic. That's why lots of fish, other animals, are ingesting plastic trash. But what do I think about edible spoons and forks and stuff? That's a whole class of products called bioplastics. And some plastics, bioplastics, I like. The ones that degrade in the ocean. What I mean by degrade is the ones that really fall apart in the ocean. And there are very few that do that. The other bioplastics I'm not in big favor of. The reason why is they're very difficult to recycle, and a lot of cities just throw them in the garbage can. They don't try to degrade them in a compost bin. don't recycle them. So what I would suggest, I know in India there are edible spoons. I saw a video of a guy eating a spoon that was invented in India. I would suggest, I'd be interested to see if any of you did an experiment to see how long it takes for those spoons to completely biodegrade in your garden, or like in potted soil or any kind of natural environment. I haven't seen that study yet. I'd love to see maybe one of you guys do it.
Marcus, we want to
Yes.
thank you. We would love to check in with you after we do our Ranthambore unit, and we're going to continue looking at human impacts on the food chain and food webs. So we'd love a chance to check in with you later in the year, but we know you're traveling and you need to get home, and we're all going to give you a big AES shout out. So thank you.
One more thing. If you go to Five Gyres Facebook, I just put a short video about Palmyra Atoll to show some of the trash I found there, and it's like a 1-minute clip on our Facebook page. If you like, I'll send you some photographs of the animals too. The amazing giant crabs and the birds, and it's just such a beautiful place in the world. Very inspiring. I want to thank you all very much for allowing me to talk in your classroom.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everybody.